Now you're being recorded. It's January 5. Welcome to the first C4 meeting of 2023. Your co-chairs, Commissioner Savis and Mayor Hodson are here, and the meeting is yours.
Great. Well, good evening, everyone. My name is Paul Savis. I'm a Clackamas County Commissioner and the co-chair of C4, and I'm joined by Mayor Hodson, also co-chair of C4. And I thought maybe because of all the new things that are happening and some of the new faces and positions and changes at the election at the council level, maybe you could do a quick introduction of yourself and also if you foresee your role at C4 continuing with the new council or foresee any changes. So Mayor Hodson, I'll pass it on to you and let you pass it on to the next.
Okay. Well, good evening. Welcome. Happy New Year to you all. It's good to see everybody. As Commissioner Savis said, my name is Brian Hodson, Mayor of Canby. I'm your co-chair here for C4 and have had we discovered last night, I think I've been on C4 for the last, I think 7 or 8 years and co-chair here for at least, I think 4, maybe 5. And I will be continuing on as the C4 rep for the city of Canby. So I get to see all of your lovely faces for the next year.
Great.
And I need to get my windows open here so I can see everybody. All right, so I'll just go around my window there. And Trent, will you introduce yourself, sir?
Hi, I'm Trent Wilson. I'm the county staff here that facilitates C4. I work in the government affairs office, and so happy to work with many of you city officials coming in and continuing to work with those of you who are continuing. So welcome to C4.
Thank you, sir.
And how about Mr. Myers? You go next.
Evening, everyone. I'm Martin Myers. I am the chair of the Redland Viola Fishers Mill CPO. I'm here tonight as the C4 rep for the CPOs. Good to see everybody. I think I'll be here another year. Then my term comes up.
Great. Thank
And
you,
you're Sherry French. You're on mute.
Here I am. Okay. Sherry French, Clackamas River Water. I've been here, well, I guess I started last year to take the place of Hugh Kalani, who passed. And to be honest, I have, 2 more years before I have to run for re-election, so I'm not sure how long I'm going to be here. So.
Okay. And you represent all the water districts in Clackamas County.
Right.
Okay, great.
And then I'm also on Impact, which is also SDAO, representing all special districts in Clackamas County. So,
Okay. And just to make things confusing a little bit, I'll introduce Paul Gornick so he can explain his Oak Lodge Water Services role from the sanitary district perspective.
hi, Paul.
Hello, thanks, Paul. I'm Paul Gornick. I'm a director at the Oak Lodge Water Services Authority, and I will be maintaining this role at least through this year. And as Paul noted, I represent the sanitary district, the one sole sanitary district in the county to be represented in this body.
Okay, great. Mayor Kaiser. You're on mute, sir. You're still on mute. There you are.
Come on, Scott.
It was the space bar wasn't working for some reason. Mayor Kaiser from the most incredible city in Clackamas County, Molalla, and I have 2 more years left on my term. Oh, and the town that turned down mushrooms. Thank you.
And Mayor, you'll be continuing for C4?
Yeah, 2 more years.
Okay, great. Councilor Sherman.
Thank you. Brett Sherman, City Councilor in Happy Valley. I'm sitting on C4 Metro Subcommittee, Diversion and Tolling Subcommittee, and I look forward to serving as long as you'll continue to have me here at C4.
Awesome, thank you. And Mayor Drinkwine.
Mayor Sean Drinkwine, and I'm going to continue on with the C4 as always. Elected again. Been on there a few years now. The gray hair is setting in. It's nice to see all of you.
Okay, thank you. Mayor Buck.
Good evening. Happy New Year, everyone. Joe Buck, I'm the mayor of Lake Oswego. I'll be serving again on C4 this year and also serve on MPAC as representing Clackamas's largest city.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Garlington.
Hi, everyone. I'm Mindy Garlington. I am the Gladstone City Council President. Right now, our mayor was finished at the end of the year and we don't have our swearing until next week. So I'm the next in line. I'm happy to listen in and hear what everybody's got to say. Thank you.
Okay, so the representative for C4 from Gladstone is uncertain.
Very much so, yes.
Okay, great, thank you.
Thank
Mr.
you.
Gronke.
Well, I'm going to make things even more complicated. I'm Ed Gronke. I'm the Clackamas County representative to MPAC. I'm a non-voting member of C4, and I will continue to serve at the pleasure of Lynn Peterson. I don't know how long that will be.
Okay, thank you, Ed. Commissioner Scholl.
Yes, good afternoon, Mark Shaw, Clackamas County. I've been on C4 since 2021. Should be around for at least a couple more years. I look forward to working with you all this year to bring pressure to bear on decision-making at Metro and in Salem. Thank you.
Great. And a new member, Rebecca, how do you pronounce your last name?
Hello, everyone. Rebecca Stavenjord, City Councilor from Milwaukee. Our membership will be undecided until the end of this month when we go into retreat. So I'm serving as an interim member for our council this evening.
Okay, great. How those goats doing in the backyard?
They're doing great.
Okay, great. Commissioner Morrill, Commissioner Morrill.
Yes, good evening, everyone. Adam Marl, Oregon City Commissioner. I was just elected to my first full 4-year term in November after having been appointed in 2021, and I will be continuing serving this year on C4, so, and on the tolling diversion committee, which is quite a joy. So great to be here.
Great. And the celebrity of the day who's been on TV, just saw you on TV, Mayor Bielowski. Introduce yourself.
Hi, everybody. Roy Bielostowski from West Lynn. Just got appointed to be the mayor. We're having an interesting time with 3 council members now, and our more councilors will be coming on in March because we had a ballot error. So I'll be here at least for the next few months, but probably through the end of the year.
Okay, excellent. Congratulations.
Glad to be here.
Great. Todd from Canby.
Todd Wood, I represent the small transit providers of Clackamas County. That's Canby Area Transit, South Clackamas Transit, Clackamas County Transit Services, and Sandy Area Transit. And as far as how long I'll serve, I don't know. We draw straws here in February and see who gets the short one. So.
Okay, great. Mayor Pulliam, congratulations on your reelection.
Thank you. Like drink wine, we get to do this every 2 years, but I'm not a landslide guy like Sean.
Yeah.
Congratulations. Stan Pulliam, mayor of the city of Sandy. I'll be continuing on as our representative for the next 2 years. Looking forward to getting more engaged in the group. And I've yet to select my alternative yet, but that's where we're at.
Okay, great. We appreciate the attendance from Sandy. We miss you.
Well, I've been a little occupied, but I'm looking forward to rolling up my sleeves.
Yeah, understood. Councilor Lewis.
Good evening, Christine Lewis. I serve communities in District 2 on Metro. So that's Lake Oswego, West Lynn, Oregon City, Milwaukee, Gladstone, Happy Valley, and then a bunch of unincorporated. My term has been renewed, so I have 4 more years on Metro Council, but we organize ourselves year to year. So this morning we passed our organizing resolution, and I'm the point for C4 for 1 more year. And then Commissioner Simpson, who's new, Ashton Simpson, he represents communities to the east of me. So he's got Gresham, Troutdale, etc. But he also has part of Happy Valley and east of there in Clackamas. He will be my alternate for this year.
Okay. And while we have you, Counselor, could you tell us who the Metro Counselors will be on JPAC?
Yes, so JPAC counselors are Counselor Gonzalez as JPAC Chair, myself as JPAC Vice Chair, and Counselor Simpson as the third counselor. And then Counselor Wong is our JPAC alternate. After 1 year of doing service on both JPAC and MPAC, I'm stepping down because that is a workload that is unreasonable and nobody should ever do it again. I believe I was the first Metro counselor to do it and hopefully the last. It's a lot of repetitive presentations. So thank you to the staff who do sit through that. And so that's going to be counselors Nolan, Wong, and Rosenthal on MPAC this year.
Okay, great. Well, thank you all for the introductions. Congratulations on those who won their election or re-elections and so forth and appointments. So I bring this up because I think we have a somewhat of a very challenging year ahead of us. And I think our cohesiveness and work at this group and other related C4 functions and groups is going to be really important. Tolling our challenges on some of the land use issues I know that some of the cities are involved with in court. And also our challenges with the homeless situation as well. So the first order of business today on the agenda is the approval of the minutes. Is there any changes, recommendations, or is there a motion to approve the minutes?
Commissioner Shaw, move to approve the minutes.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Great. Any other comments? Is there anyone opposed to approving the minutes or have any opposition to the minutes being approved? Okay, I will deem those approved as presented. Trent, next item on there is the city rep. So you want to broach that for us?
Yeah, this is a fun one. As you know, C4 has an executive committee and it is made up of 6 members, 1 county commissioner. I think one of the CPO/Hamlet seats, the fire district seat, as well as an urban city and a rural city rep. And then I'm sure I'm missing one. But presently, since Mayor Stemple is no longer part of C4 and no longer mayor, that urban city seat that she held is vacant, which means if y'all would like to appoint an interim seat for that role until basically March is when we normally have that conversation for C4. He would be serving in the January and February capacity as the point person for those cities within the UGB for that executive committee representation.
So I'll just give it a quick overview of what the executive committee does. We meet once a month, usually a week or 2 following the C4 meeting to set the agenda for the coming month. The input for the agenda setting primarily comes from our retreat and what our goal setting that comes out of the retreat. So we try within that 12-month period to spread out the priorities for our monthly meeting based on that. And also as things come up, we also work on the agenda. So the agenda is actually set not by the county or any individual person. It's set by the executive committee, which is the group of 5. Is it 5 of us or 6 of us?
There's 6.
6, right. So it's one commitment of about an hour or so per month. And so this is the next step here to have the cities, the urban cities select amongst themselves here.
If they'd like to. And then of course I'm committing that every March, the whole group of C4 sort of has this discussion again. And so this would be at least an interim seat for 2 months.
Okay.
I'd really appreciate it if we could keep it under 11 ballots. That'd be great.
Right. Touche.
Well, that's a certainty. I mean, there's not 11 urban cities in Clackamas County. So is there a preference to doing it tonight, or would you like to talk amongst yourselves for the next 30 days and bring it back, gentlemen and ladies and gentlemen?
Well, I'll note the next executive committee meeting is on Monday, which happens the second Monday of the month. So I recommend a quick little can't really huddle over on the side of a room on Zoom, so that's too bad. But we promise to be polite observers if you want to have a conversation here.
Which cities are considered the urban cities?
Those cities that are within the Metro UGB.
That'd be Wilsonville, Lake Oswego, West Lynn, Sandy, Milwaukee. No, not Sandy. Did I say Sandy?
You're gonna start a revolt, brother.
Yeah. Sorry.
No way.
Yeah.
So that'll be Wilsonville, Tualatin, Lake Oswego, Westland, Oregon City, Gladstone, Milwaukee, and Happy Valley, and Johnson City, but they're not here. And Wilsonville's not here either tonight. They have a council meeting.
Mayor Buck.
Well, if he is interested, I would like to nominate Councilor Sherman, who for this role. If you, since I've been on C4, Councilor Sherman has been one of the most engaged members, also serving on other committees, including MPAC, also very engaged in those roles, very familiar with the issues, and a great representative of, represents our county, outside the county as well. And I think he would be great on the executive committee.
Second that.
Well, Sherry, you're not.
Thank you to you both. I appreciate that. Would the question, Trent, would this be just essentially just an interim position for the next couple of months, and then we kind of revisit this when March comes along, or is this, how do we handle that?
Yeah, that's my recommendation. But as the cities within the UGB, you get to decide amongst yourselves how you want to proceed.
I would be honored to step up at least for the next couple of months and take on this role, and then we can certainly rediscuss this in a couple of months if there is a compelling reason to do so.
Okay. So do they need to vote, or is it just consensus, Trent?
Yeah, I mean, it's more of a consensus at this point. And if y'all do vote, it would only be the cities within the Metro UGB.
Right.
If anybody else wants to step up, please don't hesitate. That's okay. Head shaking going on. I win by default. Yay.
Well, it sounds like Councilor Sherman, by default, you are you've been appointed by your peers.
I appreciate the resounding support from the group.
Great. So next on the agenda are we have I'll let Trent introduce this, discuss the draft letter on the RMPP, the Regional Mobility Pricing Plan. The County Commission approved a letter yesterday. But Trent, you want to take it away?
Yes, thank you very much. We are in the middle of a comment period. Actually, we're at the very end of the comment period. It ends tomorrow for the Regional Mobility Pricing Plan analysis, specifically of their purpose and needs. And so, folks, y'all have done this with I-205 for many years. You're much farther along in that process, and recognize, please, that this is a different tolling program. So this is an opportunity to comment on the purpose and needs, which they published in November, and they provided a comment period. And there was an opportunity in December for the C4 Metro Subcommittee to discuss this and provide some context for how they would recommend C4 might respond to this comment period. And this is your chance to make a formal action and provide comment to that purpose and needs of the RMPP. So hopefully, for those of you who had the opportunity to go watch the video from that December discussion, or who had the privilege of being there, there's a little bit of context to how some of these comments were derived. I took that discussion and discussions from your other tolling conversation throughout the last couple of years, and was able to take that information and create this draft letter that you see in your packet today on page 5. It is certainly up to you whether this moves forward or is edited. This was my best effort at capturing those comments that I think are important to C4 based on what you've said. Some of it says many things that you've already said with former tolling concepts, but I tried to couch it in a way that sort of is trying to address this broader regional programming. So certainly it may look similar but different, but worth being somewhat repetitive in some cases, because this is technically a separate tolling program. I do have my colleague here, Jamie Stasny, who doesn't know I'm about to bring her in, but if there are technical questions about the RMPP, she might be well equipped to answer them to come in. And then there are a couple new folks here, and so I don't want to take the assumption that everybody knows what the Regional Mobility Pricing Program is. RMPP is an effort by ODOT to value price or congestion price I-5 and I-205 between Wilsonville and the Columbia River. So all the way down from that Willamette River, Boone Bridge, all the way up to the Columbia River on I-5 and I-205. These are my words, but sort of with the intent of behavior modification to reduce congestion, encourage people to go to different modes of transportation, but also to capture revenue for ODOT to maintain and improve the freeway system. And then, of course, that comes with the context of, that's undetermined on what all those improvements are going to be outside of the major bottlenecks and the IBR that's already been sort of identified in House Bill 2017 and House Bill 3055. So a lot of information there, but happy to answer questions. My colleague Jamie Stasny is here if you have other questions, and the draft letters in your packet, and I'm here to listen.
Yeah, I'll just add one more layer of information, and that is that the first toll to be experienced on I-205 or I-5 will be the 205 section, which will be a separate toll. It's the toll to pay for the capital improvement of the bridge and or the lanes as it develops. So the RMPP will be layered on top of that, and it's estimated right now that the cost to go down the I-205 corridor, at least as far as we understand it, it's not really set in stone by any means, but the toll for the first layer, which is the capital improvement, that's estimated to be about $8 round trip per day, or $2 per gantry with 2 gantries in place. So the RMPP will be on top of that. It'll be an additional fee that'll be variable. Councilor Sherman.
Thank you, Commissioner. Mr. Wilson, I think you did a fine job of capturing much of what we've talked about at a number of meetings. And I think the flavor of the letter, just really proves how much of a well-spoken nerd you are, well constructed. I think the only thing that we had talked about before, and I'm not sure if this is the forum for that information or not, but one of the concerns that we had that I think I brought up at a prior meeting was, the whole notion we've been going back and forth about the timing of introducing RMPP versus the I-205 tolling, and the fact that there could be, a year, if not more, of delay between those two projects. And I think you did a good job of capturing the uncertainty about how those pricing relate to each other, whether one's on top of the other one, or how you kind of bring those in. But one of the questions that we had before is, I think Mandy Putney from ODOT had indicated they're looking at like 50 to 60 gantries around the entire system. And in my mind, there's a huge question about how quickly you can implement that. And the notion that if you're going to build 50 to 60 gantries in a year, impossible. It's not physically possible to even manufacture them, let alone install them. So, do we look to incorporate language about having them create or study or create a timeline for that, and then communicate that timeline so that ultimately they have to be able to go back to the public and update if that doesn't occur? Because I think that's going to be a big question in my mind. If they say, hey, yeah, we're going to try to get this done in less than a year, and 5 years from now, we're still looking at tolling on 205 and nothing on the RMPP. So is that reasonable to include as part of this letter, or is that maybe outside the scope of what we're trying to communicate here, and would that muddy the waters?
The timing of implementation for the RMPP seems reasonable to me, because if it's a regional program, it needs to, Trent's opinion here, and I'm just staff, so a recommendation, but it needs to operate within a regional system. And if the I-205 toll program is going to be part of that regional system, it does need to have clearer identity on how it works together. So I think that's a pretty reasonable addition to this. Where it fits in with like the purpose and needs might be more peripheral than sort of what's listed there, but I think it's worth a comment, and it's a comment that y'all have made often about aligning the timing of the two projects, and really probably more than that in the long run. But yeah, we could find a way to include it in the document, but it needs to be turned in tomorrow. So we need to maybe figure it out tonight where you would like to add it, and we can come up with something.
Yeah, wasn't there already a section in there? There was something in there about the timing between the two, and there was, I think it was something effective, RMPP clarifying the timing of like having that occur is with when it gets approved at the federal level or something like that. There was some segment in there that kind of talked about timing already, and I didn't know if that would be a logical place to incorporate that, kind of bringing the two of them together at that point. But I don't know. I'll throw it out to the group, and if there's a thumbs up on that, then fine. I mean, it's not a huge issue. I think the letter captures the vast majority of what we've talked about, and I didn't really want to incorporate anything that would make it more convoluted, because I mean, I guess the fewer data points we have, the easier it is to respond to them if we get a response. So okay, that's all. Thanks.
Any question? We have Jamie on board if there's any questions. While you're all contemplating that, I do want to add that one of the issues to be tackled by what's now called the RTAC, which is the Regional Transportation Advisory Committee, is to look at how we can work to close that gap between the timing of the toll being implemented and the variable pricing RMPP element to narrow that gap. So that is one of the tasks of the Regional Transportation Advisory Committee. The other committee, for those of you who are not aware what's going on tolling, is our C4 Diversion Committee. Our last meeting was the first one in which we went for 2 hours versus 1 hour over lunch. And a lot of some of you were in that meeting as well, but I want to just make sure people know that it's not just us, it's not just the county commission, it's not just the city councils of West Linn and Oregon City that are really focused on this or impacted by this. It's all of us will be impacted by this, but I just want to let you know that there are forums in which we are tackling this. Jamie, is anything that we missed or you want to add to the conversation?
Thank you, Commissioner. Hello, everyone. I'm Jamie Stasny. I know many of you, but nice to meet the new faces around the room, the virtual room. So I'm the Regional Land Use and Transportation Policy Coordinator. I work in development and transportation. I work really closely with Trent and with Commissioner Savas on a lot of transportation issues and many of our regional partners as well. So been working on this tolling for almost 2 years now, I guess. So just sharing this, there's been a lot leading up to this, but agree with Commissioner Savas on the issue of closing the implementation timeline gap between the 205 toll project and the RMPP, or Regional Mobility Pricing Program. Had a staff meeting today to prepare some ideas that will be brought forward to the RTAC meeting, which is being held the 4th Monday of the month. And I believe Mayor Bialystowski will be our representative for the cities and Commissioner Savas for the county at that meeting. That will be the main topic there. How can we close that gap? And I'll just share that what was offered in that conversation is how do we speed up the RMPP? And they were not wanting to talk about how do we slow down the tolling of 205. So I'll just share from staff perspective, we asked them to add some considerations because we don't know where the levers are. Why are they working so quickly to get 205 online? Why aren't we talking about slowing that down so we can do this if they are going to do it so it can be done correctly? So just sharing a couple of details, but definitely more conversation about that coming up later this month.
Okay. Jamie, one question. Is there anything that's occurred from the time this packet went out with the draft letter that was created by Trent and now that you would suggest we add or remove?
Ooh, got all the hard questions tonight. Things are changing on a daily basis, as you know, and as we talk about. I think Trent did a great job of capturing the main overarching concepts and ideas and putting those forward so you can get them on the record on behalf of C4. It very closely mirrors the letter that the board approved yesterday. I think all of the same topics are included. So nothing new that I see here. Again, this is very specific to the EA process that they're going on for the federal government. It's not just like, hey, what do you think of this project in general? It's for this environmental assessment. This is the purpose and need that we've identified. What are your comments on that? So it's really specific. So because of that, I don't think there's anything new that needs to be added. I think this is a great comprehensive list of concerns that cover everything for now.
Okay. Great. Oh, there we go. Mayor Buck.
Thank you, Commissioner. I mean, one thing that I heard recently from our staff at the city that I hadn't heard yet, from ODOT or discussed in this group was that some of the mitigation so maybe some of you folks already know this, but some of the mitigation, that ODOT has been talking about, at least with our technical teams, is stuff like traffic light timing. Councilor Sherman, we were talking about this earlier. Certain adding striping on the roads, some reflective tape. I mean, I'm talking stuff that our staff told them, well, if it's this is stuff that we should be doing right now. Right. And so here, I don't know if we need to be, I mean, the letter's, I like the letter. Trenton did a great job capturing the conversation, but there is a complete disconnect here between what I think all of us here in the room see as mitigation needed to meet the clear objectives of this program, and what ODOT has in their mind is this very narrow idea of the impacts, because as we've seen all along, they do not believe there's really any impacts. And so we're just going to change the timing of your traffic lights and, paint some shoulder, change the reflective paint on the shoulder and call it good. That sounds absurd, but I mean, that is where they're at. So I don't know if we need to be clear when we're talking about safety conditions. I mean, we're talking about actual investment in our communities ahead of just this revenue generation machine that they're trying to run. And we need the improvements that are going to create the conditions so we can reduce VMT and we can have the positive, climate impact that the whole project is supposed to achieve. But if all we're doing is improving the roadway and dumping more money into the road, the whole program will have the opposite effect that it's supposed to have.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. So I have a question for you, Mayor, just to build on something you just said. I mean, if it turns out that more people are diverting off the highways, during not just at rush hour, but at other times, diverting off the freeway to avoid the toll, which will be 24/7, and more people are pushed off, I think we run a higher risk of actually seeing greenhouse gases increase, not decrease. So I think we pointed that out in our letter that we've sent, and I just want to know if or make sure that everyone's aware and you're aware that might be an undesired outcome by a lot of folks who are really climate conscious right now.
Commissioner Savas, I think too, I guess the benefit of having this RMPP as opposed to, before it was just us voices here in Clackamas talking about I-205, but now they're getting region-wide, feedback on this. And I think there's lots of unity around the comments that Clackamas has been making all along now. So will that make a difference?
Okay. Great, thank you. Mayor Hodson.
Thank you, Commissioner Savas. Trent, it's a great letter. I appreciate the work that you and your staff did on this letter. I think it does capture a lot of things. And Mayor Buck, there, I look at my screen, but Jamie's still there because we had the mitigation conversation in Canby here late, in I think early December, and our frustrations are real. That we know that the tolling is first going to pay back the construction and the gantries and all those pieces before they're even going to spend a dime on mitigation pieces. In one of our presentations at Canby City Council, and I know that I've brought this up to this group before, was that they believe in other tolling areas, primarily back east, that when that occurs, people's driving habits change initially, but usually about 18 months is when they, on average, return back to their normal routes of travel. So to me, when I take that piece and I take the conversation about the diversion and trying to mitigate the diversion, all they need to do is delay 3, 4, 5 years, because we're getting there, we're saving the funds and we're paying this off before we can do these things. We won't see it happen. So part of me hears a lot of smoke and mirrors in this conversation about funding and making, the improvements to some areas regarding the diversion piece. So, I mean, there's some substantial things on Highway 99 that need to be done. More than just striping paint, and better crosswalks and things of that nature that were thrown out there. We're talking some major pieces along 99E between us and Oregon City. So I go to those conversations and I appreciate the work that staff has done. Jamie's done a tremendous job, and she's in more of those conversations than all of us combined, I think. But I don't know. I'm not real optimistic, and I'm a pretty optimistic fellow, that we're going to see a lot of traction towards actual money and projects being completed in much of our areas regarding diversion.
Okay, great. Well, sounds like there's support for the letter. I don't want to belabor the conversation, but I do want to emphasize, and maybe our representatives from West Linn and Oregon City can maybe speak up a little bit. What we realized, and I didn't really realize it till I asked the question here a couple of weeks ago at our C4 diversion committee. I asked the question if the traffic studies they've done on tolling included off-hour diversion, not just peak hour. Did they only study peak hour? And my concern about that is, again, people divert today because of the peak hour congestion on the freeway, but people be incentivized to divert simply for cost or for the fee itself and fee avoidance. That areas like downtown Main Street in Oregon City, Willamette Falls Drive, heavily impacted. Highway 43, which is projected to be another 13 minutes longer when just the first layer of tolls is implemented. That impacts Lake Oswego and people traveling through West Linn as well. So if you just have any comments about that and how strong of a role your city council is prepared to take going forward. Adam? Oh, Rory, go ahead.
Adam, do you want me to go or you go? Oh, okay. I was just looking at the slides that Jamie sent over from the mitigation projects that ODOT's proposing, and I'm looking at my community, West Linn, and it's just pedestrian improvements. So it's almost like a tacit admission that there's not much they can do, or there's not much they're proposing to do to actually address the cars for diversion. I mean, it's all crosswalks and things like that. So we're ready to take a strong role in West Linn. All of our counselors are really concerned about it. We've just been trying to figure out kind of how to navigate the mitigation process and kind of get more projects that we think should be on the list onto the actual list that's going to get constructed. And I guess to have our concerns validated, because I think city officials know their roads better than others. So like, I know that our Willamette Business District and the neighborhood around there is going to get just destroyed when a bunch of cars start driving through, but it seems like it's just not validated based on ODOT's methodology. So trying to figure out how to get some more validation to those concerns and deference to local government officials on which projects they think should be included. I mean, because I never had anything to do as a city councilor in the last 2 years with this list of pedestrian improvements. So I think that's something we should consider. How do we get more local involvement in the process to get the projects that we know are important on there, rather than just what's coming back from I don't even know how they got their models. So those are my 2 cents. Thank you, Commissioner Savas.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor. Councilor Morrow or Commissioner Morrow.
Yes, thank you. I echo a lot of what Councilor Mayor Bielostowski just said. It's been frustrating being our city's representative on the tolling diversion committee when that is supposed to be a forum for listening to our concerns. And I think we all generally get the sense that or at least for me personally, it kind of just feels like like I'm losing a lunch hour on the third Wednesday of the month. So when we're looking at the proposed mitigation projects, my concerns have been very similar in that they don't address the capacity issues. They're just trying to, they say they're trying to take a systems-wide approach, which includes the transit, which is something, great, we need to be expanding that as well. But that's not going to solve this with the current or the proposed future of transit in Clackamas County. That's just not going to help. And there are no ways for our roadways to be expanded to address the capacity. So any sort of mitigation that they're going to propose really isn't going to help, whether that's traffic wise or safety wise. And so I've been trying to communicate that. So Oregon City is continuing to have a strong presence on this issue. We just voted on a letter very close to this last night. We will continue to be a part of the conversations, is what I'll say.
Good. Thank you. I see Trent's hand up and Mayor Kaiser's hand. So Trent.
Oh, I'd be happy to hold my comments until after Mayor Kaiser.
Okay, Mayor Kaiser.
My question is for Commissioner Morrow. Have you guys even thought about looking at the Oregon City Tunnel? That is going to be the biggest bottleneck in your city, especially with 99 and all the traffic. As somebody who drives a semi, I drive dump truck through there 10 times a day. And we take up 2 lanes going through that tunnel. And I really, really see that as becoming a safety concern going through there, because we have to take up that much space to get through the tunnel. And the cars, they sometimes are very unforgiving. And I really see that as something that you guys should probably look at when you put out letters and fight this battle, because I don't see that ODOT being able to change any of that situation.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Kaiser, for that. And that's something that's been heavy on my mind as well, because that connects right to the Main Street corridor as well. And something that I was a little surprised to see was when they originally came back with impacted intersections, they didn't even think to include the intersection of our Main Street with the Oregon City Arch Bridge, which was something that I thought was pretty crazy and insulting. That I mean, that's kind of where we're hoping to, or where we're expecting to see the biggest impact, and that includes that stretch of roadway at that tunnel, especially considering the fact that there have been some rock slide issues in that area. There have been geohazards there. We need to make sure that if it's just a standstill there for cars, that we're not just looking at physical improvements on the roadway there as well.
Well, if there is a good landslide on 99, their whole idea of, traffic using that instead of tolling, I mean, it's done. It's not going to be pretty.
One thing I will say, whether it's Mayor Buck's comments and others, is that everyone please be aware that the mitigation that I've seen thus far, and this is not semantics, this is not solutions. It's simply mitigation. It's just so to speak, a Band-Aid, but it's not a fix or a cure. The solutions we have offered to date have included a frontage road and/or having an express lane or a free lane that would help avoid the diversion that go off for people to get off the freeway. And that's not being truly considered apparently. But so therefore, I don't want anyone to have false hope that somehow mitigation, like the mayor said earlier, is somehow going to be the silver bullet. It doesn't appear that there's any silver bullets here at all. So that's Trent, what do you have?
Yes, I have 2 things. And I guess the lights turn off at 7:30 here. So I have 2 things to share. One of those is just to recognize, like, the way this conversation evolved was to talk about the RMPP, which is a regional program, to get focused on the mitigations of the I-205 toll project. And that's part of this, I'm going to call it a game, but of course I don't mean it in that sort of fun way. It's easy to mix these 2 projects up. The RMPP, which is what you're doing comments on now, will not only affect, Westland and Oregon City and Gladstone, it's also going to be a toll program that goes through the city of Wilsonville and Tualatin and those parts of Lake Oswego on I-5, as well as, those exits that go into Happy Valley and Milwaukee as well. And so think of the RMPP as this different animal that will be discussed and policy made around it at the same time as the I-205 project continues to evolve. And so it'll be challenging, I think, to wear different hats as these conversations keep going, which is one of the reasons y'all have often asked to do these projects at the same time. Just wanted to sort of help with that a little bit, because I could see it even in this discussion as we're talking about the RMPP to get focused on those 205 toll program mitigations. Both are relevant. I'm not trying to minimize that, but think about it as two different projects. And I guess on that same note, and to Councillor Sherman's questions earlier, I think if I can share the screen, these very small edit may get to your request earlier to sort of comment that the project has an opportunity perhaps to begin at the same time. It's a really small edit at the area you recommended to say communities in Clackamas County have consistently requested that the I-205 toll program not begin until the RMPP begins, or at least until the RMPP achieves federal approval. And capturing two different alternatives that ODOT could consider, one of those being the federal approval and one of those being doing it at the same time. So I'm hoping that is maybe a nuanced way to add that timing element, if you agree.
Okay. Thank you, Trent. Any other questions? I can't see everything right now. You want to pull that letter down? Thank you. Is there a motion to approve the letter as amended?
So moved. Oh, sorry. I'll second.
Okay, so moved by Martin Myers and seconded by Councillor Sherman. Anyone opposed to the letter? Please raise your hand or signify. Okay, I will take the letter as approved. Trent, what's next? Thank you all.
Okay, next up is regional appointments. And you probably all know this, but elections at the city level have affects everyone's appointments at a variety of different committees across the region. And in your packet on, I believe I didn't do page numbers, so my apologies. But page 8 of the PDF, there are at least 5 that I've noticed and recognized. And if there's another one, please let me know. But one of those is the Region 1 Area Commission on Transportation. Here, let me just share the screen. That might be easiest. One is the Region 1 Area Commission on Transportation. That's the R1 Act. And so Mayor Gamba and Councillor Drake did not continue their roles in those cities. And so those are 2 city seats at the R1 Act that are vacant at this time. And so there's already a rural city seat. Mayor Hodson sits in that capacity presently. And you can kind of tell that at least for these 2 seats, one of them ends here this summer and another one ends in 2 years after that. So my proposal is that through the course of January, y'all can send nominations to me for a discussion y'all would have at the February C4 meeting, if you agree. Another one is the Regional Toll Advisory Committee. The current member is vacant. That was held by Councillor Heisey, who is in attendance tonight. Hi there. And alternate is Councillor, now Mayor Bialostowski. And so that is another seat that needs to be filled. And then 2 seats on one on JPACT and one on Impact. Did I say 5? I think it's 4. Sorry, 4. One on JPACT and one on Impact. And so this is something that happens at the C4 Metro subcommittee meeting. And I have proposals for y'all having that discussion at that meeting in January to get that process started. So these are the vacancies and the proposals for how to address those vacancies. And I think I'm sort of looking for your head nod that this is an acceptable approach to addressing these current vacancies, if you agree, or we can make amendments to move things sooner or later.
So Trent, it looks like the vacancies have, where there's a vacancy, there's an alternate. So there's someone ready to jump in and fill those roles in the immediate future. Is that how you see it?
I mean, you could fill the vacancy or you can consider the set. I don't think that anything precludes you from doing those, if that makes any sense.
Right.
For the R1 Act, though, I need to say that you would just be filling the rest of that term. So the R1 Act has their own bylaws on how to approach that. And yeah, I think all of these groups have their special bylaws and ways of doing things that we'll try to adhere to.
So I know it's unique and different, but can you speak on each of these as to who makes the selection?
Yes, so for the R1 Act, they typically look to the coordinating committees. And so C4 has a unique voice in this process for helping to select who might go to sit on the R1 Act. The R1 Act bylaws say that whomever the coordinating committee selects is merely a nomination, and then the R1 Act makes the final approval. I've not seen an example of the R1 Act not accepting a nomination from the coordinating committees, but it's in the bylaws, so I guess anything's possible. So this body would, have a discussion about who would go in that seat for those positions. For the Regional Toll Advisory Committee, very similar. The coordinating committees make a recommendation for who sits in those roles as the cities. So I'll say, since these are city seats, what we've done at C4 is just host a city discussion and let the cities make that decision. As a county staff person, we don't intend to, interfere with those opportunities for the cities to select their own membership. So the C4 provides that opportunity to just be a convener. Likewise, for JPACT, it would be the cities within the metro boundary would select those seats. And for the Metro Policy Advisory Committee, other cities seats, I'm sorry I said small cities here, but I mean other cities. That is all of the cities within the metro boundary that are not Lake Oswego or Oregon City who already have a seat at Impact. So that one's a little complicated, but it basically is just the urban cities that are not Oregon City and Lake Oswego. Yes, Mayor Kaiser.
Is there a way we could just go through a nomination and vote tonight with who's here so we can move on and people can take their seats and get involved?
That's certainly an option maybe for something like the Regional Toll Advisory Committee or the R1 Act. And I'll just say the reason why I'm not recommending that tonight is that not every city council has had a chance to designate whom may be in their different roles for different cities, even for the C4 seat. And not every person who sits on these has to sit on C4. So it could be that someone who sits on the R1 Act may not be a C4 member, but is someone who's interested from that city council. And so this gives a chance for all of the city council members to have that conversation about where there's interest. At the C4 table, y'all have requested that those who are engaged in these various seats do try to participate in C4 because so many transportation conversations happen here. So just my recommendation, because many people are still really new, it's challenging to do that on January 5th, but I think there could be some time between now and February to create a little bit more certainty about where commissioners and councilors will be involved for their select cities. Councilor Stavanger.
Thank you. I'd just like to second that for Milwaukee. There are a few of us that are interested in serving in these capacities, but we won't have a chance to discuss until our retreat, which is in a couple of weeks. So I know that there will be an active member from Milwaukee, but I would like to have a little bit of time to discuss with the rest of our council.
Mayor Hodson.
Thanks, Trent. Would it be possible, if we're going to maybe hold off till February, maybe if a brief description of what the commitments for each of those might be that can be sent out, so that, as the councils are having those conversations, that, there is a time commitment, obviously, with all of these that we take part in. And when you're trying to figure out your current bandwidth as a counselor or mayor, and then your own city's responsibilities and activities and liaison roles, and then you start to layer in county and regional things, time gets shortened very quickly. So, or even when the next meetings were, if people wanted to drop in and just see what some of the context was of those meetings.
Yes, I can make this memo a little more robust and share that as like a follow-up email, perhaps earlier next week, to like let folks know and cities know that this is a open nomination period for these different seats. And of course, at the C4 Metro subcommittee meeting for those JPAC impact seats, we'll have a chance to have another discussion about that on January 18. But for those top two in particular, which might require a little bit of a quicker appointment, absolutely. Councilor Sherman.
Mr. Wilson, any thoughts? Or some of these committees have require a really deep knowledge base, and they can be very nuanced conversations. I don't know, like RTAC or Region 1 Act, do they all have kind of the same requirement of, just, I think about like how long it took me to get this up to speed on like MPAC and things like that, or even C4, where it's a year of hearing about all the things that are occurring before you really get like how all the pieces fit together and the decisions you're making, how they impact your community. Are there certain committees that are more suitable for somebody who's newer into the role versus further, or is it just each one kind of has their own nuance and responsibility? And I guess what I've seen in the past is I've always found it really helpful to be an alternate for a period of time, attend the meetings, get to know what's going on kind of before stepping up in that next role. So any thoughts on that?
That's a really good question. And, a lot of these are city appointments. And so typically that comes out a little bit in your discussion with each other about people who have been in those meetings, sat in those roles. And then in some cases, where our jurisdictions may be more impacted or not impacted. And so, for example, the Regional Toll Advisory Committee, there was some good discussion about, do you want to have a jurisdiction in there who is going to be impacted more quickly by the toll? And ultimately the decision was to have Councilor Heisey as the primary because of her role on different committees like JPAC, but then also then Councilor Bialostowski because of the adjacency of Westland to that project. So I guess it just depends on the committee and the desire and the expectation. And then I would also add most of these committees, but in particular the JPAC and the Impact Committee, there's a variety of staff there to support those members who are in there. And so you're not going in solo like on an island. You do have staff support in different capacities. I know for the Regional Toll Advisory Committee, the county, Jamie was here earlier, we provide sort of a staff role to help brief ahead of those meetings and share what we're tracking, because as we've discussed here, there's a lot going on and that stuff changes, on the daily. The R1 Act, that's a little bit slower and maybe less action items overall, but so maybe that's one that's easier to jump into or not as big of a time commitment, for example. So that'd be my non-answer answer.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that.
Mayor Bialostowski.
Thank you. I was just going to add that looks like there's an RTAC meeting on the 23rd of January. So I will be attending that in my capacity as the alternate, and I'm happy to be the primary or continue to be the alternate, but I will attend on behalf of the group, and anybody, whether you're from the metro or from the rural community, please reach out and I'll pass along any comments you have, because I know we're all going to be affected no matter where we are by this. So thanks.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that. One thing I will say, and that is in general, I agree that probably the R1 Act might have the least workload and much easier to mesh into. But I also ideally having a member from C4, ideally transportation oriented, let's just say, to serve on these is important. And from a land use standpoint, impact as well. So it doesn't have to be, it hasn't always been that way, but ideally you can report back to us, or you can learn from us in these meetings and get that message back on behalf of your cities or whoever you're representing, back to the tables. So just want to ideally it works that way, but it doesn't have to. It doesn't have to be a member of C4. Okay, any other questions? So Trent, closing remarks are, everyone maybe take this page out of the packet and keep that in mind, and especially the city members, because this is your role to think about and select and work on amongst yourselves for the next meeting or two of the next month or two. Correct?
That's correct. And we'll have these teed up in packets as they come out for these respective meetings, as well as I just made that commitment to have some sort of follow-up email early next week with a more robust memo that sort of has more details on each of these committees.
Okay, great. Mayor Hodson, we're at the halfway point. Happy to let you drive the car for a while. Mayor Hodson?
Oh, I'm sorry. What was that, Paul? I didn't quite hear you.
I said we're at the halfway point. Would you like to continue on and chair the rest of the meeting?
I think you're doing a stellar job. So if you want to bring it home, that'd be great.
Okay. All right. I'll continue on today. Next up is our C4 retreat and the year ahead. I will also add with this that the invitation to participate in the retreat has always been open to anyone on the city councils, county commission, even the public, CPOs, districts, all the members, whether it's metro councilors, whoever would like to attend. So we try to make this as broad. And this really is your input at these meetings is really what sets the agenda for the year. So if you're not happy about something or you want to see something move, that is the opportunity. We do this once a year, ideally. We missed out last year, but hoping to do that in person this year. And with that, I'll hand it off to Trent to talk about the details.
That's a good introduction. Thank you. It's early in the year. And as we've already noted, there's a lot of transition at the city level and decisions on who's going to serve at this table. So opportunities to continue thinking about this, but I'll let you know, it's my goal to get you back in person as a committee. If that happens at the retreat first, awesome. As Mayor Pulliam has often reminded me, the last time we met in person, I served food and it was March 2020. So you're welcome. And that was a good time. And no one went home sick, I think. But that was a good meeting.
It was gross. Here I'm the COVID guy and I thought it was bad, man.
So we all look back in our own respective ways at what happened there that fine year of 2020. So in your packet at the very end is an outlay of all the different meetings. We are at the county looking for a way to get this group back in person. It has historically provided a great opportunity for networking, as well as just getting to know each other better. The room that we used to meet in has been experiencing some severe sound issues, which is one of the barriers of getting us back together. That's a room that has some of that spacing that we still like. Also had the ability to record and have microphones. So working on that, promise I'm working on that, and we'll try to find ways to do that sooner rather than later. But we're Zoom until then. And then for the retreat, which we're aiming for the summer, usually it's in June, but I need to get a hold of the resort at the mountain or other locations. If you have recommendations, please let me know to see when a group this big can have a more robust meeting over usually a 2-day period. It's nice to get out on the mountain though, because it gets everybody together, gets people away from their offices and their other responsibilities, and it's a good time. Everyone has a lot of fun. But part of that is making sure that you have a robust agenda. And so as the year gets started and as your meetings start to develop, I need to hear from you, or I would like to hear from you, or you can talk to your executive committee members about what you want to see C4 work on, and have conversations at the retreat to navigate those issues. And it could really be anything. And remember that this group is a coordinating body that focuses on transportation, land use, and housing, but really has the bylaws allow you to be coordinating on a lot of different things, not just those topics, but those are obviously ones that are easy to grapple, coordinate, are aligned with a lot of the committees that you're on. And so it usually is the hot topic at the retreat. So I can cover a lot of issues. As 205, I'm sure we'll have more things to talk about. The RMPP will, I'm sure, have more things to talk about. Housing and homelessness will continue to be front and center for a lot of you, so no surprises there. Economic development has come up many times in this group. Transit and how to improve transit throughout the county with our 6 providers is always a coordination topic that this group tries to wrestle with. It's a good topic. And I'm sure the legislature will give us some things to think about as well as it gets going here in just a couple of weeks. So I'm looking for ideas. If you have some, please email me or your executive committee member, and we'll get those teed up. But looking at that June or July timeframe, and if you want to also just send me that maybe you are or are not available at different times. I'm not quite that far yet, but once we know what the availability looks like, we'll get that doodle poll going, everyone's favorite, and get this scheduled and get everybody in there. I will say, just my guess here, that historically it's been about $220, $230 for a registration fee to go. That was 2 to 3 years ago. So setting expectations now, and I haven't looked at it yet, that it might be closer to 250 to 300. I don't know, but that's been something that we've tried to navigate in the past. It's not free to do these things. We usually have a facilitator, guest speakers, and of course, we're doing hotel lodging. So I want to put that out on the table for y'all to think about and get your feedback now to help me think about later. Thank you.
Okay, great. Any questions on that? All right, looks like we're ahead of schedule. Next, we have our updates and other business. JPAC impact updates. I will provide the JPAC update and see if Councilor Sherman or maybe Mayor Buck would like to do the impact update. Last month, what was approved was the RMPP framework. And there was discussion and a vote. It fell a vote or two short of passing, but I made asked for a friendly amendment to the mission statement for the regional transportation plan. Did I say RMPP earlier? I meant RTP. RTP, regional transportation plan, and that amendment basically said in the mission statement that the region would essentially strive to have a regionally balanced transportation system. And for those of you who are transit minded, or those of you who are highway or road minded, you'll probably realize that the amount of road capacity, lanes, networking, and so forth, and transit especially, is woefully short per capita or geographically in Clackamas County than it is in Multnomah County, for example. And historically, the resources, whether state, federal, or through the region, historically, I think a lot of us would argue that Clackamas County sometimes does well, but over the history of time, Portland's done pretty well, or Multnomah County's done pretty well. So we are woefully short, and especially with the realization here for the last several years with TriMet saying, well, Commissioner, or well, City of Happy Valley, or whatever city's involved in Clackamas County, we don't have the resources to expand transit very much, period. So, adding that mission statement or change of the mission statement was a couple votes shy and did not carry. I'm hoping that the Metro Council will consider, looking at that. But if we tend to go on with the pattern that we currently are in, whereby there is no goal to have a regionally balanced transportation system, then we will continue to have to fight for every dollar that we have, and we'll have less opportunity to be ready for growth or handle a number of the things that are necessary. That's my update. Councilor Lewis, did I leave anything out of significance?
I think that was the meat of the meeting. I think we had 2 informationals, but that was the vote.
Right. Okay.
And I will say that the Clackamas County delegates did stick together with that motion for yes votes. So the opportunity to do, I think, more outreach to Washington County to make sure that we're on the same page for that kind of regional equity.
Yeah, thank you. And I haven't given up, but it seems to me that the plan's being developed with the current mission statement. So it might, the whole RTP might be a product, really, it should be a product of where the North Star is. So if we're going to change the North Star, we need to do it soon. That's my JPAC update. So Mayor Buck, would you like to provide the MPAC update?
Well, thank you, Commissioner Savis. Sure, we kind of ended the year at MPAC talking about regional coordination around supportive housing services, addressing homelessness. And we had Liam Frost, who's staffing the Tri-County planning body that was somewhat recently set up. I know those folks are just getting going, and we're looking forward to hearing more, I guess, is into this year 2023 on how that body will work to coordinate these efforts. Today there were only two of us elected officials, the Mayor Beatty of Milwaukee and myself, and then a great group of Clackamas staff folks from housing, human development, human services rather, met with the governor-elect's staff to talk about homelessness and behavioral health in Clackamas County. It felt like a productive conversation. Which is great to see the governor-elect doing work throughout the state, trying to understand what's working well, and where the gaps are currently in all of our communities. Clackamas staff did a great job representing the issues really well. And there were also some of our community organizations in Clackamas County that attended that meeting. Yeah, that's pretty much it. We also been, talking about regional transportation plan. Really, in this past year at MPAC, we picked just different aspects of the RTP update to discuss, and those were kind of ongoing conversations. I'm sure there'll be more RTP talk into this year as well.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for that. The next update would be the Climate Action Plan Task Force, and our representative from Tualatin is not here this evening to give that. Do you have anything, Trent, that you're aware of?
Yes, I do. There are tentatively 2 more meetings for the task force. So certainly something y'all could chime into if you were interested. One of those is going to be on January 19th from 1 to 3 p.m. Yes, those are 2-hour meetings. That will talk about the implementation guide and climate action plan updates. The other one's going to be on March 2nd. So you got some time before that one. And that'll be a review of public input received for the climate action plan, wrapping up that committee and talking about next steps. And so throughout all this, though, the public outreach on the draft plan will be conducted in the early parts of the year before a final is presented to the Board of County Commissioners in the spring. And that will be followed by development of recommendations for the first 2-year work plan that'll come out later in the year. And that'll also be presented to the Board of County Commissioners. So there you go.
Okay, great. Is there anyone from any jurisdiction that has an update that they would like to provide? Mayor.
Thank you. I don't have an update. I just wanted to circle back to our conversation earlier. I'd never seen those ODOT mitigation projects for Westland, but I hope it doesn't get lost on us that strength are in numbers. That's why we're here. But the issue of kind of allowing more local control over which projects get mitigation, or even the concept of what they're doing is not mitigation in terms of providing pedestrian facilities. So how can we change the narrative from the Clackamas County City's perspective and get it more focused on, the impact of cars? So just wanted to bring that back up, and maybe we can revisit that in the future with our advocacy, but nice to meet everybody virtually.
Yeah, this is such a fascinating topic, and it's so complex, but the part that it just, besides the climate issue that I wrote up earlier about diversion, perhaps increasing greenhouse gas contribution, the other one is the behavior change aspect, right? Because they say that it's designed to change your behavior, the RMPP, and yet without alternatives and without any means to increase transit, there is no alternative. So therefore, it doesn't accomplish a second goal of the RMPP tolling. So we can go on and on with that one, but I'll just leave that one there. No other updates. Mayor Buck, you always ask for our SHS update, so I'll volley that up. We've got revenue. It's nice to see, frankly, that in a way, that the challenges Clackamas County has are not unique to Clackamas County, that Multnomah County in recent news, and Washington County, and no staff in both those, but are experiencing the same challenge, and that is staffing and trying to get the dollars out there. I do know that we have the resources, and staff has been unimpeded when it comes to they've got the resources, they got the green light in Clackamas County anyhow, to go forward and hire up as many people as possible and get the contracts out. The acquisition for the Quality Inn off of 205 and Sunnyside Avenue is still in play, and that's public right now. So perhaps in the next 30 to 60 days, we'll have some finalization as whether or not we acquire that. That'll be 110 rooms. Some people are calling it a homeless shelter. I don't think that when people think of what a homeless shelter is, that's what we're building at all. We're not building anything. We're buying a completed hotel that's a hotel today, and people moving in there. It's actually transitional housing is how I would define it. Hopefully for people that obviously are be willing to to take a room and be in a transitional program to move back into permanent housing. So that's what the turnkey project's about. That's my update. Is there any other questions, Mayor Kaiser?
Just curious on how full the one on McLaughlin is and how that's running.
One on McLaughlin has been working. We don't own that one on McLaughlin, but it has been since 2020 has been. I think we've taken almost every room of the 27 rooms in that hotel since 2020. So that's actively being used on a contract basis.
Who is it that owns that? And are these rooms just continuously full? I mean, is there any numbers on how many have been transitioned out and made it out back into society?
Right, that's a great question. And Trent, can we get some kind of a monthly report, maybe from Vahid or someone, on the amount of people that yes, people have transitioned. So the good news is that people are transitioning to permanent housing. And so when there's a room opened up, there's someone there to step in and take that room. So there is, if that gets to your question, Mayor. Okay, great. Other than that, I do know that we have a task force with the sheriff's office, the district attorney, and others to make sure that it's being ran, well, and there's no issues and impacts to the neighborhood. So we're working on that. That's a work in progress always, but it's going well. Councilor Garlington.
Hi, I'm just going to chime in a little bit on this one because we have the Tukwila project in our neighborhood. And it's one of the things that I can honestly say is if you have a transitional housing unit in your neighborhood, it's imperative that you stay physically engaged, not through Zoom meetings, but actually showing up and letting the people there know that you're in a community and what it means to become part of that community. So my other comment is that we invited the people from Tukwila to our council meeting, our council work session in November. We invited them earlier than that, but it was a while before they could get it together and present to us. And some of the takeaways from that is that they opened that building without plans on getting people food, with having people there, physically there to help people transition into a house room from off the street. We had 4 people at that meeting and not one of those people worked at the building. That I felt was very much a shortcoming on their proposal. So I just think that there's a lot more that goes to opening up these units than just opening a door and giving somebody a bed. And what I asked the staff that came to speak at our meeting was, I hope that you've learned from what has happened and or what did not happen, so that the next time this doesn't happen again in someone else's community. The other thing is, and I don't know the numbers off the top of my head, but our police activity from the building and in the immediate vicinity definitely rose. So that was another thing that we said, you know, now a year later, they're just finally opening, or they are just finally having 24-hour paid for security, when that should have happened from the very, very start at a very minimum, and it did not. So I could go on and on about some of the questions that we did, but I just think that, you know, please, Mr. Savas, make sure that nobody shuts down the conversation of the people directly impacted. And I do mean the people living there and the people living in the community. You have to keep those conversations open all the time in order for something of this magnitude to work.
Well, I appreciate that, Counselor. You know, Mayor Stempel's a friend. She's got my number. You're a friend. I'm happy to convey my number to you. I'm surprised to hear that, knowing that Tukwila Springs is for senior citizens and there's a number of people that have disabilities. So I didn't really think about or anticipate that there would be, unless they're not senior citizens, but I thought it was designed for senior citizens, should have a less propensity for any kind of activity that you're suggesting. But basic elements like food and so forth should be, I'll look into that. I'll pass that on to my staff immediately.
I'll just say this. I think we're on the right path. We've opened up that conversation and made sure that the people that Clackamas County have chosen to run the facility, there was 4 people there that took on different parts of it. I feel like they've got a laundry list now. So at this point, you know, hopefully they've taken notes. Things are going to happen. And like I said, the thing that I just asked them, I said, please, the next facility that you open, do first. Don't just wait to see what happens, because that's not fair to the communities that surround the buildings, and that's not fair to the people getting put into a building and not knowing if they can open their door and what they can ask for. That stuff should have happened beforehand. Like I said, they have a laundry list. I feel like things are going to happen, and we're all going to continue the conversation and not just close our eyes and hope that things just happen.
Okay. Well, I do know our past Commissioner Fisher was the lead on supportive housing services operations and so forth. So we haven't been appointed, anyone's been appointed that role. I might look to that a little bit, take a stronger role in the operations and see if that's done by contract or by county employees. If it's a contractor, then we'll look into that. I will say that we were really successful with the Veterans Village with Do Good Multnomah. They did a great job, and we had a learning curve, of course, and they've made adjustments, but we've been really happy with the results there at the Veterans Village, and a lot of volunteers as well that provide that. So I'll look into that, Counselor, and maybe we can have a private conversation if there's anything else that I'm missing. We can pass on to our staff.
Absolutely. I want it to succeed. I seriously want it to succeed.
Yeah, we will. It will.
Yeah.
It will.
Yeah.
Counselor Sherman.
Very good. Thank you, Commissioner Savas. So is Tukwila Springs, is that under the same Project Turnkey program, or is that something different? So I guess what I'm asking at, looking at Quality Inn in our neighborhood, does it fall under the same kind of structure and resources, or are those two distinct things? Because one of the things, as Happy Valley at the City Council, I have a desire to see other examples of this type of kind of transitional housing with wraparound supportive services to kind of see where the successes are, what the challenges were, the failures, and kind of better understand what we can do to be part of the solution and kind of make sure that we are, moving this forward in the best way possible. So, anything that you can help share with that. I've already reached out to, is it Adam Brown, who's the Deputy Director of Health and Human Services. We've had a conversation, and so I'm hoping that we can kind of move that to the next level where we can get a little better information, some tours of areas, and kind of better understand what that looks like. So, with Council President Garlington's comments. I mean, it would be really good for us to kind of keep moving this conversation forward, because I know we have members of the council that aren't on board yet. And so just trying to do my best job to do as much fact finding as possible.
Sure. Yeah, Adam Brown's a good contact, so I'm sure he'll steer you correctly, and whatever information you get there. To your question about, is Tukwila Springs a turnkey project? No, it's not. It was actually the first Metro housing bond project of Clackamas County. So we opened that. Councilor Lewis was there as well. Thank you, Metro, for their support in doing that. And that has and was designed and anticipated to have the support, the wraparound services from supported housing services dollars on site. So that is funded there. The turnkey project, as we plan on implementing it, will also have and does have currently supportive housing services dollars, and those services there on site. So that will be for the services we provide that are contracted directly from us. Yes, there are some nonprofits that are doing hotel stays, and we presume by contract that they're providing those services, but there are a lot of nonprofits out there that want to get into and are currently engaged in hotel room rentals for housing, transitional. So we don't have a handle or direct contact or control over all that. It's something that's a lot of that's by contract.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that.
Yes. Commissioner Scholl.
Yes, I just gonna mention regarding Tukwila Springs, the county's got a contract with a nonprofit called Home First. It's a $2.5 million contract for 5 years for management of that facility. I visited it personally in the 1st of October of last year, and I agree that the contract language for the next project has got to be much more detailed, and I think that if that happens, it's going to answer some of the issues that Mindy Garlington just brought up. Thank you.
Yeah, and as a matter of, I won't say coincidence, but there's another came to my attention here last few weeks on another facility and a contract. And I actually suggested to our legal counsel today that there be some contract changes. So we're in new territory. So I think by the learning curve, we'll be making adjustments in some of these requirements in the contracts to make sure they're followed through on. And always, so please, yeah, your feedback's really valued. And if any of you want to put that in to an email to us, to Trent, myself, that'd be great. That way, if our staff want to contact you, we have an avenue to get back to you as well for any follow-up. Counselor, is it Stavenhord?
Stavenjord.
Stavenjord, okay.
Yeah,
I'll get it.
thank you. It's a tough one. I just wanted to mention that as C4 is having conversations about houselessness and investments across the county, it might be helpful to delineate these pockets of funding. So, what is available to be built out through the Affordable Housing Fund, what's available for operational and service support through supportive housing services, the difference between the affordable housing and then project turnkey sites, what sort of measurables and outputs are required of those locations. And it looks like the property manager for the site in Gladstone is Home Forward, which, they have a number of properties across the region that they operate. And I believe that that's in partnership with NEA, which brings in the culturally specific element for Native Americans and indigenous populations. So I know Commissioner Savas, you had mentioned wanting to get some more information from Vahida around transitional housing, but it might also be helpful as we move toward retreat to have a larger conversation about what that entire tapestry around housing and support services looks like.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. I know that it's been of interest to a number of our members around C4. Some of you have had those presentations, but because there's so many new faces, and I guess we're also in the learning curve, I think we also we'll be sure to bring that back. It seems to be something of interest. And the retreat's a great time to, again, to brief everyone once again on that. So point taken, appreciate the recommendation. Anyone else? Well, we're happy to end early if there's no other business. So have a safe drive home, everyone, and we'll see you next month.